The war fought between July 28, 1914 and November 11, 1918 was known at the time as the Great War, the War to End War, and in the United States, the European War. Only when the world went to war again in the 1930s and 40s did the earlier conflict become known as the First World War. Its casualty totals were unprecedented, soaring into the millions. World War I is known for the extensive systems of trenches from which men of both sides fought. Lethal new technologies were unleashed, and for the first time a major war was fought not only on land, but below the sea and in the skies as well. The two sides were known as the Allies or Entente, consisting primarily of France, Great Britain, Italy, Russia, and later the United States, and the Central Powers, primarily comprised of Austria-Hungary, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire. A number of smaller nations aligned themselves with one side or the other. In the Pacific, Japan, seeing a chance to seize German colonies, threw in with the Allies. The Allies were the victors, as the entry of the United States into the war in 1917 added an additional weight of men and material the Central Powers could not hope to match. The war resulted in a dramatically changed geopolitical landscape, including the destruction of three empires: Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian. New borders were drawn at its conclusion, and resentments, especially on the part of Germany, left festering in Europe. Ironically, decisions made after the fighting ceased led the war to end war to be a significant cause of the Second World War. Although the fighting reached across many parts of the globe, most countries involved shared a united effort aimed at ending the aggression of the Axis powers: Germany, Italy, and Japan. The rise of Nazi Germany and its aggression can be traced directly back to World War I. By 1935, Germany had ceased to recognize the Treaty of Versailles and all the restrictions that accompanied it. In particular, Hitler announced his intention to fully rebuild Germany's military forces. In 1938, Germany began annexing the territories of neighboring countries, including all of Austria and most of Czechoslovakia. When Germany attacked Poland in September 1939, Britain and France aligned against Germany, and the war began. Like Germany, Japan was severely affected by the Great Depression. Beginning in 1931, Japanese forces began occupying territory in the Chinese region of Manchuria. By 1937, Japan and China were officially at war. In 1940, the Japanese government announced its intention to establish a new order in East Asia, under which the region would be freed of Western influence and guided by Japan. In 1940, Japan signed a formal alliance with Germany and Italy, setting the country on a clear course to enter World War II. In the meantime, the United States, disapproving of Japan's actions, placed a heavy trade embargo on Japan, severely restricting its ability to import oil, scrap metal, and other resources vital to its war effort. Japan saw itself facing an impossible crisis, and without prompt and decisive action, total collapse would be inevitable. The action Japan chose was a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on December 7, 1941. This action brought the United States into World War II in both theaters, Europe and the Pacific. As Hitler plotted his next steps, Italy, an ally of Germany, expanded the war even further by invading Greece and North Africa. The Greek campaign was a failure, and Germany was forced to come to Italy's assistance in early 1941. Later in 1941, Germany began its most ambitious action yet by invading the Soviet Union, although the Germans initially made swift progress and advanced deep into the Russian heartland. The invasion of the USSR would prove to be the downfall of Germany's war effort. During the course of 1944, the Germans were slowly but steadily forced completely out of Soviet territory, after which the Russians pursued them across Eastern Europe and into Germany itself in 1945. In June 1944, British and American forces launched the D-Day invasion, landing in German-occupied France via the coast of Normandy. Soon, the German army was forced into retreat from that side as well. Thus, by early 1945, Allied forces were closing in on Germany from both east and the west. The Soviets were the first to reach the German capital of Berlin, and Germany surrendered in May 1945, shortly after the suicide of Adolf Hitler. Fighting continued throughout the Pacific in 1944 and early 1945, including major battles at Leyte, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. By the late spring of 1945, most of Japan's conquests had been liberated, and Allied forces were closing in on the Japanese home islands. As they neared Japan proper, the Allies began heavy bombing campaigns against major Japanese cities, including Tokyo. This process continued through the summer of 1945 until finally, in early August, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Stunned by the unexpected devastation, Japan surrendered a few days later.